It's 1 o'clock, and I am a punctual commissioner and chair. We'll start as we always do. Today is Friday, January 11th, 2013. This is the Josephine County Board of Commissioners convening for the administrative workshop. We'll start with the Pledge of Allegiance, so please rise. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All righty. So, legal counsel's first up here, and we have an ambulance service area plan. I'm sure it's different than what we did a couple of. Hey, Beecher, how you doing? Good. I have to apologize. I was out of town for most of the weekend. It's the reason we're doing this on Friday, and I actually haven't had a chance to review everything. So I have to apologize, but I will get it done before the end of the deal. We're going to let you just take it away, because I think I'm fairly up to speed on what we're doing.
Well, the last time you saw the plan, you certified it and were submitted to the state for approval.
Great.
Today we're here because the state has approved it.
Great.
So we're ready to go to the next step, which is to redraft the ordinance and the administrative rules to bring them in compliance with the newly approved plans.
Right.
And then go on to the next contract. So that's where we are.
When does our current contract expire? Is it June?
June 30th.
Okay, great. So we have a little bit of time.
Yes.
That's why it's in the queue where it is.
Right.
Okay. So what kind of ordinances, right?
Yeah,
Do we have to refine?
The county has to enact an ordinance
To adopt?
Adopting the plan and creating the areas and setting rules for operation within the area.
Great. Okay. Sounds good. We don't have that yet, though, do we?
Sorry?
Is that included? We just move forward to Wednesday?
I don't have those drafted yet.
Okay.
I'm working on them.
That's fine. In fact, if we have a little bit of time, I'm not going to be here next Wednesday, and so I'm okay with anything. My goal is for not to leave you guys high and dry. That I don't know that we need to move, whatever we don't need to move forward to next Wednesday, which it doesn't sound like we're ready to do.
It's not going to be that soon. No.
Good. That we don't have to do that. But
there's notices and stuff too.
Yeah.
Great. Plenty of time.
Yes.
All right. Any questions, Commissioner Hare?
No.
It is. I think what's interesting is it comes to like this fruition, but people have been working on this for several years, so it doesn't change dramatically, but it's very well refined and got all the buy-in from all the AMR and the players. So
right.
Appreciate that, Dave Matthews and those people. So, all right, great. Anything from us on that? Just an update?
Not yet.
Cool. Law enforcement district formation process. So before us, I think we have in our packet a whole bunch of stuff, but it kind of goes through the hearing outline, the timeline for district formation, public hearing notices, the appropriate ORS, Oregon Revised Statute, the letter from Dave Weckner, board order, dated December 19th, initiating this process, boundary description, boundary map, and board order setting the approval of the district formation final public hearing. Mr. Walker, catch you up to speed. We just moved forward with the kind of an update on the ambulance service area plan, but that just has to be done kind of in the queue before June so we can start the renegotiations for renewing that contract. And now we're on just a law enforcement district formation process and just getting started on that, so you haven't missed anything. You guys.
Do you have any questions about the process? You can see there's a number of blanks.
Yeah.
And there's a number of, you still have to have the service level as well as the rate.
The rate. Very important. Seems simple, but that one's going to be interesting. So how much are we talking about this today? What has to be done? I think we're preparing for the hearing. It's going to be on the 18th, and that's in the morning. sometime,
9 a.m.
9 a.m., and at that point we'll go over in great detail what's included in the rate, what the description of the boundary is, which at this point excludes Cave Junction.
Right.
That's probably the major exclusion that I think we're aware
Try
of.
to put in the outline sort of how you
The
would
process
follow your
to go
hearing,
through
so
it.
you know.
I appreciate that.
Okay. And because the timeline is so short, if you're going to adopt the second, or if you're going to adopt an order that sets the second hearing, that also has to be done on the 18th.
18th.
That's why the second hearing draft, second order draft is there.
Right.
Because that's the point where, I mean, I could give it to you blank, but...
Yeah, and that's fine. We can write it in, when we get there.
Yeah, or you could, make as part of your motion what that amount would be, and before the end of the day, we could have it ready.
Yeah. Well, I think we'll sign a clean copy, but we'll put the placeholder in there.
Right.
I think we're most interested about achieving what the district would encompass as far as services are concerned, and then working backwards from there, determine a rate within the parameters that the board, would kind of say, well, we don't, from a philosophical standpoint, we don't want to go below 99 or above 299 or whatever, working within those constraints based on what services we want to provide. I think that's important. In the question of what departments we want to hear from today, on the 18th, as part of this presentation, we need to kind of go over that. So, you guys had a chance to review these?
Yes, sir.
These things. Any questions, Commissioner Hack?
I was just wondering, has there been any follow-up trying to see if the City of Cave Junction and the City Council, are they going to actually have this presented to make a decision?
They've already made a decision not to be part of the district.
Where was that done? I know that it never came on the agenda, or it was on the agenda, but it didn't ever come to a vote.
My understanding was they voted on that on December 17th.
No, they didn't vote on it. It was proposed, and I couldn't get a second. And it was,
that I don't know.
Yeah.
Technically, they never voted on it, but they certainly had an opportunity to change their mind. I mean, they can convene.
Well, I was wondering if that has been presented to them.
Oh, right.
If they still have this opportunity, this window, they need to, I would like to see them make a decision, not just have it go to abeyance.
Yeah, I think there's two parallel things. We are on a tight time frame, as established. We have to make our actions on the 18th, but so what's the parallel track of putting them in the queue? I mean, when we decide the boundary descriptions, we're going to have to explicitly say at this point, because they aren't included, that they're going to have to be excluded. Not that they couldn't ever have a petition to be annexed in the future, which I think would be the process after the formation. So if they don't make it before the 18th, I think that's what we're doing. That they missed their window of opportunity when we put the proposal, because we can't change it past the 18th, even if they probably petitioned to be annexed. I mean, right? Maybe Steve knows from 2008 and the timeline. We were discussing, including what point is the city just off the table? I mean, if we provide for the boundary in the order on the 18th, and it has to exclude the City of Cave Junction at this point, unless something changes, but can they petition to be in at any point? Do we change the wording and make an amendment to the...
You're not going to do the ballot title till the 7th.
No, but I'm saying there's the boundary designation right here in the proposal, so that's kind of where, the ballot stuff comes later, but...
We didn't have occasion to do that research in 2008, and we haven't done it now. What my operating assumption is, just like with any other district, if you petition to be in a district that you were originally not in, you can get in.
Sure.
Now, whether that means that the city would also have to participate in that, or whether, it's inconceivable almost that individual property owners, as a practical matter, would say, hey, include me in the district, unless all the city came in at the same time.
I think the city would petition on behalf of the property owners when they make a decision, just like they would have been included in the on-site. But you can't petition to be in something that doesn't exist. right?
Sure.
So how do they get in the queue when the whole thing is in the queue? You can't. They'd have to wait until the formation.
And that's
the.
If you play through the scenario here, there is no district to request that you be annexed into.
Right. So there's no.
After the district is formed, why would I want to be in the district? Services are already being provided, and it doesn't include rural patrol anyway.
I don't know.
I mean, so we don't know the legal answer to the mechanisms of how a city who initially says we don't want to be in the district, could they later come back and ask to be in? There's just not a whole lot of case law on these esoterics.
Is there an opportunity for any one of these proposed services to refuse service based on the area of residency? I mean, I'm sorry, you're a Cave Junction resident. You're not in the district which funds me to provide the service to the people of Josephine County, but if you're a tourist coming here, you're provided that service.
The example that I've used with people who ask me that is say, okay, if you're traveling from Crescent City up to Eugene and somebody from Eugene is traveling through and there's a robbery or an assault or something else that occurs between these two people, I can't even imagine the district attorney or the jail saying, you guys aren't residents here, we're not going to give you any of our service.
Otherwise you got to pack around your own DA, your own patrol, everywhere you go, and that's not the way the system works. That's a really good point, but maybe not a huge selling point, the fact that that's not good.
But it's if the city agrees to it.
The issue then is like, okay, you didn't meet, and we can talk about more of this in executive session because it's going to involve, a legal analysis.
Absolutely.
But as a hypothetical issue, it's like, okay, if you substantially comply with the statute, you missed the deadline. Yeah, but the city came back and said, oh, we want to be in now. And you include them in there, does that substantially comply with the statute? It doesn't comply literally because, they have to be...
The homework was due.
There you go. The dog ate my homework.
Yeah,
sometimes
you turned it in, but...
Sometimes not.
Rosemary, did you have a thought?
And that was my question, was if the city had a special meeting or decided before the 18th of then could this be included, but there were certain deadlines they had to meet before that?
He's talking about the initiation order.
The initiation order,
Yeah, it was really due a while ago.
We're in the gray areas of the law where sometimes public policy issues will persuade judges that that's substantial enough compliance. And you're going to see that issue again when we talk about what can be included in a law enforcement district. Because I think if you imagine a scenario where a local or state court judge would say, yeah, I know the voters approved that additional service, but we're going to not let you collect the taxes because, after all, you have plenty of money already. I just don't see that scenario playing out that way.
No.
So.
Something I think that we need to consider too is that doesn't Cave Junction have a new city council, new members on their city council, so that it died for lack of a second.
Yeah, they have one new one.
But they have a new one that might make a difference in them
Yeah.
even being able to bring it to a vote. I mean, I know the man, but I don't know his politics. I have no idea whether that would be something that would change.
I think he's interested in seconding stuff. Yeah.
So
My
because
conversations
they have a new member on their city council, it might make a difference as to whether it would actually get a motion. They could actually make a real decision.
That's absolutely possible. I think we need to work on parallel tracks here. We don't have any choice but going forward on the 18th, and I think that we need to focus on Cave Junction, but not let it track. Yeah. So, are there any things with working to have a really robust and comprehensive meeting on the 18th, this hearing that we need to go over? We have a lot of public safety people here, a couple of elected officials. I don't know what. I think we need to provide maybe some direction and questions for them to prepare for this hearing on on the 18th to give them guidance. And
If I can inject at this point, one of the things that the hearing is for on the formation of this district or any other district is for the board to determine whether the people who are proposed to be included in the district, can they benefit from the district? But also, the people who aren't proposed to be in the district, can they benefit if they're included? And that again is another indicia that would suggest, well, maybe you can put them in later if the city were to approve being included, but not at the time of the formation order.
there's a lot of questions surrounding this. For instance, and I hate to put Mr. Campbell on the spot. Say, for instance, the district attorney's office, this is purely hypothetical, don't take it to Cage or the papers, was included in the district proposal, and then in the 13-14 legislative session, the governor said, you know what, I'm going to pick up the tab for the DA's office. Don't worry about that anymore. We'll write you a check for that and have that covered. Then I have a capacity of funding within the district that isn't needed anymore. Are we enumerating that that's the portion that's going to these specific deals, and I have to return that to the taxpayers, or do I get to reappropriate that within the district?
Well, that's
Can I include something else?
I think including specific amounts of money for specific services, frankly, is ill-advised.
Right.
Because it almost sounds like you're creating a number of separate districts with separate tax bases instead of the total. Now, I think for public education and for purposes of the explanatory statement, you can tell people, you know, here's what we can do with 7 cents for animal control, or 8 cents for court security, or $1.10 for this or for that. But what's going to happen, and we've talked with some people at the Department of Revenue about this, the question is, shall there be a district formed with X as the tax base? And so you're going to be, as part of the budgeting process of that district, allocating how the money is spent. Now, you know, there would be, I suspect, all kinds of political fallout if you said, oh yeah, we know we put that in the explanatory statement, but we're not going to do that. Well, it doesn't mean that the district formation is invalid. It just means you're a slimy guy that may get recalled or thrown out of office. But that's not a legal issue. I mean, that's, you know, one of those effects of policy decisions that get made in the course of, you know...
Let's try to equate this back to the 4-H board, because I think that's the most comparable thing we have. 4-H board can do, they can appropriate their money within the restrictions that OSU puts on them for pretty much anything. The 4-H extension district. I shouldn't just say the 4-H board, the 4-H extension district. They can. So there are some parameters, but there's a lot of discretion, I think, in this. So I for instance, in looking over this and what the need is that I see in the criminal justice system, where the shortfalls are in Josephine County, I've been talking pretty closely with Dan Cantola of Three Rivers School District, and to have a component of this service district, this criminal justice, provide for school safety is a big deal to me. I think we need to solve a portion of that issue done through rural patrols. And I don't know exactly how it's done. I mean, the sheriff's office ultimately needs to be part of that conversation. But with Danny, we're looking at like the zone aspect, because a lot of these schools are in different portions of the county that are not provided for a large portion of the day. And that's not okay. We need to have somebody who's kind of on call in the North Valley area around Fleming and North Valley, or way out in the Illinois Valley, or Murphy, for instance, with Hidden Valley. I mean, somebody who's able to respond to one of these school situations in a timely fashion. So that's an element that I don't know that we need to necessarily really drill down and have explicitly listed, but it's certainly something I want to focus some resources on if this is formed.
And remember, I think part of your concern is addressed by the issue that money's fungible.
Okay.
I mean, if you've got additional funding for the jail, for example, then maybe you could free up some monies to provide school security.
Sure.
In rural areas.
Okay. I didn't mean to get sidetracked if that was, but I think it's along the lines of what we're all kind of thinking about for providing certain services in the community.
I just want clarification. When is the very last, is it the 18th or is it the February 7th that we need to have the rate set and the services?
My understanding, and Pat's got the timeline, I think, with her, is that that has to be set at the conclusion of that first, what's the date on that?
18th.
Yeah.
So we're having a public hearing and then they're going to have to go into a regular meeting to make the decision?
We have it set so that the end of that hearing outline just adjusts the motion that would have to be made, and they go right into order.
Remember, what happens is that you have a meeting, and then as part of that meeting, you have a public hearing, so there will be a meeting on that date.
The whole thing is the meeting. The hearing is a portion of it.
Right.
Okay.
Well, the hearing is first. So if you look at the end of that hearing outline,
I was just trying to equate it to how we run a weekly business session or a land use hearing. I open a meeting of the board and then we go into a hearing of whatever.
Right.
Okay, great. So the 18th.
that's a good question, because her question is, this next order that they do on January 18th is to move it to a step to the final hearing, another hearing. And at the final hearing is also when we review the ballot title. Everything would have to be done on February 7th. So is there still an opportunity to change the rate at that time? I wouldn't think.
I don't think so. I mean, we're dealing with some incredibly tight strictures on our timeline. And, you know, we told, as you will recall, Simon, the previous board, this does not allow much time to say, well, let's kick this down the road until next week and think about it.
Tabling is not an option.
No, it's dead. Not. And if you look at the time at which you have to file the ballot title, you can't file it with blanks and then ask the clerk to put them in later.
No, but I think that there probably is some leeway. I mean, I'm always going back to something else we do. We do a first reading of an ordinance or what have you. There are, you know, there's a little bit of discretion about moving and changing some things without having to refer it back to the Rural Planning Commission or to open up another hearing for people to testify and stuff. So there is a little bit of leeway and a precedent set with those kinds of things.
You keep expecting the law to be rational.
I have that problem. If they kind of equate, not just one person wrote the law. There's people writing land use, somebody else doing this.
Sure.
Well, between the first and second hearing, though, you can change your boundaries. I mean, that's in any district.
Yeah.
So it's just never come up before. Could you change the rate and change the service level?
Well, if you're going to change the service level, then it's almost like you're going back a step and say, well, can we change the service level? Maybe more people could benefit from being included or something else.
So for all practical purposes, we really shouldn't change it from the 18th. We need to have it selected.
That would be my suggestion. The preferred alternative is, you know, we can go and make new case law. Maybe I'd rather not.
We really don't have time for that.
So by next Friday, we really have to have everything in order.
I think so.
Is that right?
Yeah.
That's right.
So, you know, I think, and the other thing that there's been some talk about, and I know the board has a lot of items on their agenda, but I've had people tell me that, well, we need to give folks an alternative between a district or a 4 or 5 year levy. And obviously those are going to involve different dollar amounts. The levy certainly could include, you know, rural patrols or not, whatever. But, I mean, that's also something that's going to have to be contemplated about, do you want to provide that alternative? Because if you do, we're not going to be talking about this in March because that's too late.
Yeah.
That's my other question, too. For the county, February 19th is our last filing date for ballot measures.
February 7th.
See, our charter says that if it's not a general or primary election for special election, in other words, it's 90 days that we have to file it beforehand.
You're right, that's the 60 days, but we have to get it to the clerk by the 7th. That's why.
Okay.
So it's
Because they-
60 with the district.
Okay.
And they publish it, and then people have an opportunity to challenge, you know, the,
That meets their timeline.
yeah.
Right.
This seems kind of overwhelming, but what else is new? Any other questions? So, yeah, there's probably lots. Mr. Walker, yeah. Said everything you want to say?
No.
You said got other things? No, you're good.
I'm good.
Commissioner Hackett?
I appreciated the inclusion of this on the SOS letter, the breakdown, suggested the tentative rate
Right.
breakdown, what can be covered and what not covered. That's a good input.
So is this what we're requesting present on the 18th? I know most of those people are in the room right now, and if there's any clarity, it doesn't even need to be necessarily done here over time. If you have a question, for juvenile or somebody else, you can give them a quick call.
Well, they have options here.
Right.
So this isn't,
I know.
they've worked it out by numbers so that we can
Well, I
have the
don't.
example or put something else in between or whatever.
These all -1 fit pretty closely within my parameters, which has frankly always been $1.42, and it's very arbitrary. There's no logical reasoning behind it other than the fact that it meets cumulatively with Jackson County's permanent tax rate of $2, 2.0089 whatever, and yeah, it's completely arbitrary. But from a political standpoint, it's really challenging, I think, and it will be difficult to sell anything over what Jackson County has as a cumulative rate. There is no comparison as far as what they're able to do with their $2 a thousand. They have 13 incorporated cities. Their taxable base is 4 times ours, and their responsibility as a county is probably a third of what ours is comparatively, because they have 13 incorporated cities, they have city patrols, they have various other things that they already provide for that's not a burden on the county. So I get all.
Whether it's Morrow County or Sherman County has a tax rate that's astronomical.
It's right up above the compression. It's right at compression. 937, 973. Yeah. I think
For the reasons that you talked about.
Right.
What are the tax?
everybody's in the city limits, and they're also in the county. You can't get out of it, so pretty much. But I get that. It's just, that's a huge lift to try to educate the rural parts of the county. Why are we different than Jackson County? We're right next door. There's a lot of reasons. Anyway, I don't know that I have a lot of direction to provide today. I mean, there's certainly a lot of effort that securing our safety is put in already. I mean, it's tremendous to be able to present an option that is frankly different than what we looked at in 2008 and 2009. It's different than what was on the ballot in May. And May is there because after that, it doesn't meet with the taxing timeline of getting in the queue to do something in the next year. So I don't want to exclude anybody from talking today. This is an administrative workshop, so we don't typically take public comment. There'll be an opportunity on the 18th, certainly, for those who are in the audience who are not presenters that are sitting here. So you'll get an opportunity to do that. But if there are any specific questions of the board, I think it's totally appropriate to ask whomever might be an expert on that sitting in the audience to provide direction, clarity at this point so they can have a really great presentation. Sheriff is an elected and the district attorney as well. If you have anything to add, Stephen.
If I can, the number is something that's going to have to be worked out. We need a lot of work on those numbers. The document that you have in front of you, let me back up. Taxing district, in my opinion, is the real way to go to take us into the future. We're real close to what we presented in 2008 with the two-tier tax district. I believe strongly that people should only have to pay for the services they receive. The taxing district will accommodate that, and like I say, it'll take us into the future. However, the numbers that are provided, again, let me digress. I want to encourage the SOS group to continue doing what they're doing. There's been a lot of hard work put into this, but we're not close on numbers at all as far as the sheriff's office goes in It was just a couple days ago that we finally started talking about numbers with my office, and we're way out of line. So I think hopefully SOS will work closely with us during this next week, and if you commissioners want to be a part of this, albeit you have to do it independently or separately, there's a lot of work that needs to be done yet. The numbers that you have in front of you, I think in that one chart, take a look at it. Yeah, this chart here gives various options. The options that are reflected in that, I think for the sheriff's office, 180 beds at 88 cents, 83 cents, but it's broken down a little differently on that chart. For a total of 88 cents, we're not even close to what we can support right now, our status quo. So a lot of work needs to be done yet with SOS and with anybody that wants to be a part of this to come up with more substantial numbers. If we get locked into the 88 cents as proposed here, for example, it will be inadequate. We will not be able to support or sustain the level of service that we currently enjoy. So some serious work has to be put in this. Thank you.
Thank you, Sheriff. I think it's, without getting too much down into the numbers, it's really important that I think that SOS works with both you and our finance department to figure out that we're presenting something accurate. I think the parameter that I put out there, may not be shared by the majority of the board or even anyone else, but that's my number. That's where I'm at, and so that may be arbitrary, but it's real. At the end of the day, your numbers are real. They're more real. You know exactly what you can provide for whatever kind of money that you're given. And I just want to take this opportunity to say thank you for all the progress you've made on the federal jail bed side. I think that's fantastic. We're not home free yet, but that goes a long way to filling in some of these gaps, hopefully, and providing some of that funding stream that's going to be needed to have a sufficient number of jail beds, because that all kind of figures in. Commissioner Haugen was very adamant about this as a system. I mean, you have all the jail beds in the world, and you have no district attorneys. You got a bunch of free hotel space, really, because nobody's going to get in there. And the same thing for if we don't have adequate number of patrols. The whole thing needs to kind of work together. And so we've got about a week to get these kind of solidified, because then we're just living with them, and we're telling the public we're doing this with hopefully pretty close to accurate numbers. So,
if I can add one thing, if we do a district, we're committing ourselves well into the future. And where that can change is if property values increase, then there'd be an increase in the amount collected. But we're locked in. And rather go into the future with not just a Band-Aid, but an adequate level that would provide some modicum level of safety to this community. So I'm extremely concerned, and I agree all are.
well, the balance of that is achieved by short-term levies. If this, or going back to the voters to say, you know what, $1.42 or whatever number we arrive at, it isn't cutting it anymore. We're going to need to do something different. And I mean, I guess it works both ways. We could have a reduction. I don't think that's terribly likely, but there was a time in the 80s when we didn't collect the 28 cents per thousand we had assessed. So it isn't, probably, it's not even out of my lifetime that we just did that. So it's certainly possible that there could be an adjustment to this number. It's pretty fit in stone, but not 100%.
Yeah, I mean, the only thing that comes to my mind is that I know that SOS has been working for 10 months, whatever, to come up with something like this. And I know there's been a fairly concentrated effort in the last several months to come up with something like this. So I'm a little surprised that SOS has not communicated with the Sheriff's Department about these rates, or the Sheriff's Department has not been more involved with SOS as achieving these rates. But to sort of come down now and say that these rates are not adequate, that is
A conversation that should have happened 6 months ago.
Yeah. So, we'll order this one.
Well, not to make excuses, but, This is a group of citizens that have tried to get together to, bake a cake, form a solution, and, they're not privy every day with Rosemary and the sheriff sitting across the hall. So she is there quite a lot, though.
The one question I have, and I met with the sheriff yesterday afternoon, they're actually showing, they've got one sheet that shows blanks for adult jail and then one for 71 cents. And my understanding is the board would set a rate, what it is, $1.40, whatever it is, which would generate X amount of dollars, and then it would be a board decision, a budget committee decision on how those would be. These are just kind of suggestions based on the discussions they had with the individual departments.
And that's not set in stone either.
Yeah.
You pass a district, and any one of the appreciating departments say, well, wait a second, no, you said I was getting 99 beds. Well, we're going to give you 89, and we're going to do something over here. We're going to give you 109, we're going to do something different over here. So that's not just me talking. That's any future board. As you were saying, this is a permanent district. Who knows what a board's going to do in the future with this money? That's not set in stone. So I think that's also something people need to.
Because the reality, if you really look at the numbers, we need $2.18 on top of the 58. Just
on top of the,
on top of the 58. We all know we're not going to be there.
Right.
I'm not sure trying to get all this information and everything together by next Friday is reasonable from a finance standpoint. Myself, I would probably recommend we look at the local option levy and give us 2 to 4 years to really work on a district. Get Hay Junction moved in, get the citizens educated, make sure we're not getting federal money. But that would be my recommendation from a finance standpoint.
Yeah.
The board has the ultimate decision on what they want to do and how they want to proceed. And the citizens have definitely put a lot of time into this project. I think a taxing district's the way to go too.
Sure.
But I'm just not sure if we're there.
And I think it needs to be always put in perspective of a part of the portfolio of the funding solution. Mm-hmm. There's the federal, there's the timber resource part of it. Right. But we're sitting in a different situation than we were just last year with Senator Wyden being in charge of the Energy and Natural Resources Committee. He's committed to getting another appropriation, and his position is not changed. It's appreciated. It hasn't gotten worse. He's coming back with another extension, whether it's a bridge to implementing a natural resource plan or not. There's another extension coming, so that's got to factor in somehow in this discussion. I'm just going to be honest about that. So the board hasn't really had an opportunity to weigh the benefits of another short-term levy proposal on the May ballot, or doing both, or just the district. We need to have that conversation, and frankly, probably today at the end of this admin meeting, if possible. I think it's important we do it sooner rather than later, given the timeline that we have before us. Any objections to that? I don't know, that means you all want to stick around for an hour or so while we hash through the business that we have at hand before us, which I hope to accomplish pretty quickly. But
you do have a long agenda here. It's obvious for everybody to see it. We have an executive session scheduled for 2 o'clock, and we can push that off. And
you asked me how optimistic I am that we're going to keep to that?
Let us know when you want us to come
Sure.
back, if you want us to come back, and we can talk about it.
I definitely do. There's 2 issues on there I want to get done today.
The other thing is, I'm assuming there's still going to be another admin next Thursday, so we could finalize those orders.
Yeah, it's just a matter of getting it in the queue for a discussion. I mean, if we're looking at doing a levy, or if we're kicking this district idea down the road, I don't know what. I'm just saying that those are options. We really kind of need to have a path laid out, at least for the next couple of weeks, which really determines the rest of the year before May. So sooner rather than later. And I'm prepared to discuss that. I hope you guys are too today. I think it's my number 1 issue. So if I'm here till whenever, I'm here till whenever. All right, county property management. From a legal perspective, I guess.
We basically just want to put a chin on the table because we're getting calls. saying, hey, what are you doing with that lease? And we're saying, what lease? You're the property manager. What? He said, well,
Right.
I'm not writing leases, but what are the terms? Well, and in fairness to Ryan, there just needs to be, I think, with Rosemary or whoever else is part of that.
Yeah.
I don't want to be telling people one thing and the board having some other idea about how we're going to move forward.
Right. Is that on for today? No.
No, we're still working on the job description for Ryan's piece, and then how the rest is going to be divided up.
That's a proposal to come to the board that distributes formally Chet property management's position. It was at a half-time or 0.4 or 0.6? It's 0.6. 0.6 for the property management portion. And it's frankly just being delegated out to different areas. There isn't a compensation associated necessarily with that recommendation. There might be a component of that, but because there is a revenue stream that's appreciated by having these leases out there on the books, going through property sales, through facilitating that. But the proposal back of the envelope is going to be that when we need to do a property sale or something, there's qualified people in the community that we need to be contracting with rather than having somebody on retainer, a staff person dedicated to doing those things. And we do them so infrequently. We did 2 this last year, so they're not that infrequently, and I've gotten much better at them, I think, as far as what I know about process. But we're going to work through that as best we can. And if it doesn't work, we'll regroup, come back together, and figure out some way to deal with it on a staffing level. But as a way to, somewhat reduce costs, that's what my recommendation is going to be.
In terms of demand on resources, it's going to be the leases. I mean, the sales, as you say,
somebody else can handle those. Yeah. Well, if I look at the portfolio properties that we have, the leases that are already established, we're looking at renewing those. We have about a half a dozen that are private, for-profit, probably 7 or so that are not-for-profit, $1 a year continuing leases. There isn't a lot of change-up that I see in the future as far as being a burden on your office, say. Right, but I don't want that to be, you're already doing it, but I don't want it to be an additional because we don't have Chet facilities. What I'm saying is 90% of them are already done, I should hope, and they're not likely to change unless hopefully minor amendments when we do a renegotiation, and it's usually a rate change kind of a deal. That's what I'm hoping for.
Well, I know that on past occasions, Rosemary and I have talked about how many $1 a year leases we have, and how long can we keep doing that instead of generating what money we can. But that's just more.
Well, there is a goal of mine to do an evaluation of our $1 a year leases, and at the very least, we renegotiate those ones where it's costing us money. It cannot cost us money to be doing a $1 a year lease, and that's my number one goal. That we're putting money into the county building in Cave Junction to the tune of $20,000 a year to lease it. Well, we don't do that anymore, but thank you, Commissioner. We don't do that anymore, but we can't be losing money where we're doing $1 a year lease.
If we have a property manager spending 1 hour a year, that's 14 or 15, 12 $1 a year leases that would pay for that 1 hour.
Right.
So I think I hear what you're saying, but
yeah.
I think there is mostly a losing proposition. But yeah.
Right.
There's just a few other little things that in the meantime since Chet's gone
that have surfaced
to us because nobody really knows who should do it. So we do have a few things in there pending, and so it's come up in our office for who we don't really know who's actually supposed to be. For instance, if the property manager had been given the authority to sign off for.
And he doesn't exist anymore, and I'm the other signator on that.
Well, we can bring it back to the board and have the board do the signing, which is what we would do.
Mm-hmm.
But so those are just the questions that have come through.
Yep.
I think maybe we're a little bit premature if we're still talking about the job description and stuff like that.
Yeah, I think it's at a liaison level right now before we bring it to the board, and I'd be happy to set some time up next week to do that. JBH termination.
JBH was Jefferson Behavioral Health was a mental health organization. It's an intergovernmental entity with the Southern Oregon counties. It has dissolved because of the bringing in the CCOs. And so as part of the dissolution, they had a meeting to determine how to divide up the money. And the motion that passed was that the reserve funds be retained by JBH in the amount of $500,000 to cover any outstanding bills through June. After June, they would ship any remaining money over to the county. They have
proportional.
Yeah, they have. They provided a draft of an agreement, and if that was all right with the commissioners, then they would go ahead and go forward with that. And I just needed your input as to whether that was acceptable or not.
So Jackson County makes up 3/5 of JBH, a significant portion. 6 months ago, JBH entered into litigation against Jackson County, which I think has been settled, for non-compliance of reporting and some other things. They're the major player. What I would recommend is that I've given a little bit of time to call Commissioner Skundrick and talk to Jackson County where they're at on this. JBH is going to try to continue to operate with Klamath County, Curry County. I think Coos is still. They have 3 they can continue. Without Jackson and Josephine County, I just want to make sure we're getting our fair share. I didn't vote for the $500,000 retainer. They're required by the state for $250,000, and I think that's plenty. You know, they don't exist anymore. So why are they retaining our money to pay out? And if they're going to keep paying out, they need to be paying out on Josephine County stuff. As long as they're paying out on Curry County or Coos County or anybody else's, they can't just cut us off, use our money to pay for their services. So
that's my concern.
Right. I think we need to wait a little bit and let's follow up with Jackson County. Do you guys want to? Would you mind talking to their legal?
I can.
Or I can. It's up to you guys.
Either way's fine.
All right. I should have asked Don today, but that's where I go on that. I just feel like there's a little bit of gray
They
area.
have 6 months to pay bills, and they're still operating somewhere else. How are we to know
Whose bills are paying?
whose bills are paying?
Right.
Well, obviously, any payables with a date, after, we're out of it, those, they shouldn't be using any portion of our money to be paying us.
Yeah, we're being penalized because we're paying. We're not, but Options of Southern Oregon's paying on their administrative costs that took over those services from JBH, and then JBH is doing those for other people. That's not okay. If there's stuff that's still in the queue that needs to be handled for Josephine County, then that makes sense.
Well, they would need to identify that up front before we agree, and that way we know.
Mm-hmm.
They need to identify what's outstanding.
Yeah. All right. Well,
And that's all that they could pay over that first month.
Maybe we should find
Unless
out.
something else came in that was actually attributable to Josephine County.
Dawn. We have call this afternoon. All right. Matters from commissioners regarding legal aspects. Paul and I are going to be handled in executive session sometime today, tomorrow. You guys wouldn't mind coming in tomorrow? I'll be in there at 9.
Saturday?
Kidding. I probably will be, but go ahead. Anything? No. Great. All right, I think we're good. Thank you. So when are we going to have a report on the final numbers for the hoarding issue? I don't want to talk about the case, I just want to talk about maybe fiscal numbers?
We'll see what we have next week. We'll see what we have next week.
No rush, I know how much you guys have going on.
Or maybe after you do your stuff.
Yeah, the other. There's always something going on. I'm not seeing the fairgrounds here, so we're going to go right to Diane Hoover with Public Health. Before I go any further, if anybody has a cell phone, I'm not going to pick on you, Doreen, but if you have a cell phone, that'd be great to put it on silent or vibrate or something.
I swear I did.
I'm sure you did.
All in favor? We're sure you did.
Other thing is this working better? I felt the other day when I was trying to talk to both of you at the same time. You were trying to talk to me.
It's like sitting on the side on Thanksgiving dinner and you're passing the gravy.
I was like...
and you don't get to eat.
You know, what's terrible is I've been sitting in that center plate going like this, like I'm eating corn on the cob for 2 years, and it never dawned on me if I just sit here.
Either way is fine with me.
Okay. I think this works better for me.
Okay.
Good afternoon, Diane.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. This is my monthly update for January. For the new Commissioners, I usually put my updates in writing so that you can ponder over it later if you have questions or something comes to mind. The first item is the Public Health Annual Plan Update for 2013-2014 has been completed. If you recall, last year we did a comprehensive plan. This year only an update was required. I had asked for an extension to the original due date in December so that the new board and my new liaison could use the annual plan review as a way to become familiar with our program. And that has been submitted to Commissioner Walker, and I'll hear back shortly, I'm sure.
Yes, I'm halfway through.
Okay. It's about a 30-page document. It's very big. As Beecher mentioned earlier, the area service plan, ambulance service area plan for the county was approved by the Oregon Health Authority on December 24th. So the Emergency Medical Services Board is going to start meeting in subcommittees to review the current contract and begin discussing what kind of changes we would like to see to that. The next item is we're gearing up for School Exclusion Day. Last year we sent out over 800 letters. Letters are issued in January to give parents enough time to get their kids immunized appropriately before School Exclusion Day, which this year is February 20th. And what that really means, I've got a couple of the forms. We send all these to the schools. So parents get a form that says either your child does comply, school gets a letter, but there are 3 separate types of things that we send out. So it's kind of a labor-intensive thing that we do once a year. We're gearing up for that, just to let you know that's an annual thing that we work on. Members of the SOS group have expressed an interest in lobbying to have a portion of the medical marijuana tax paid by site growers to potentially bring a methadone clinic back to Grants Pass. I met with a couple of members earlier in the week. They recognize that all of the things going on right now in our community are part of a system. There's not going to be a short-term solution to the drug problem here in Josephine County, so we're really just exploring options right now and see what's possible, what would it really mean.
Wally Hicks is working on some medical marijuana reformation legislation.
Yes, he
so
is.
I probably should dovetail with what he's working on.
Well, Archie Leidy has
Great.
been in communication with him. The only reason I put it on my update is you specifically asked department heads if we know that
legislative activity
you were interested in, in knowing about that.
Great. Thank you.
I was notified the National Association of NACHO County and City Health officials informed me that our application for a non-competitive capacity building grant for $4,000 was approved in December. And the only other thing that's not on my update is we've received notification that our tobacco prevention and education program grant is going to be cut by 5% between now and June. So already that's about $4,500 that we're going to have to.
Does that come through the Commission for Children and Families? And
no, it's straight from the state.
They distribute $160,000 for those kinds of programs.
This is a separate grant.
Separate grant, okay.
And the final thing, this is what's going to be put in the Courier. Just reminding people about flu shots. So far, the influenza problem has not really hit Oregon or Grants Pass. Amber was part of what we call blast stacks to area physicians earlier in the week, and at least the first 20 responses that I saw didn't indicate that we have an increased number of verified cases of influenza, but we're trying to prepare. So we're putting this in the paper to be published fairly soon, and then I've already dropped them off at the assessor's office, treasurer, I handed a stack to Sheriff Gilbertson and the assessor's office. So cover your costs, kinds of things. So we'll be putting out a PSA, public service announcement, kind of reminders to people about, how to prevent the spread of infection.
Wish I would have had one of those in my back pocket the other day. I was walking somewhere. I think it was in the Capitol, and this woman coughed, and she didn't do that. And she wasn't a child. I thought at that point you should know better. I was going to hand her one of these. Cover your mouth.
But the thing is into your
right, so that you're not shaking hands. I'm keenly aware of. And then somebody comes up. That's all I want to do is shake your hand after that. So great.
I dusted those. We have a bunch of those left over from the H1N1, and so I'm just pulling them out and
getting them out there.
There was an article in the paper yesterday, day before, sometime, talking about the virus, the influenza vaccine is basically used. I mean, they had a story in Walgreens and later that they were out. Was that sort of screaming in the dark, or are we really adequately supplied? I mean, it sounds like you're saying there's adequate supply of the vaccine.
Public Health Department, we still have vaccines. Some people are referring to us because they've run out.
Okay.
As far as county employees go, we're waiting to get permission or approval through Pacific Source for the increased rate. OHA changed their reimbursement rate for vaccine administration from $15.19 to over $20 on 1 January. So we need to get Pacific Source on board with that new reimbursement rate so that I don't lose money if I United County employees. And that should probably happen this week. And Rob Landis is interested in us going over and uniting his folks, and we're kind of getting along through that.
Great. Sounds good.
Hold your clinic where the people are.
We will.
Good job. Thank you.
I guess we're on to B, parks. Request to recycle old junk equipment and use proceeds to purchase commercial-grade lawnmower. Sounds like a pretty good plan. Looking at some of this stuff, yeah.
I think it's a good plan. It's pretty straightforward. We just have junk all over our yard, taking up spaces, and it's been there for years. And we had a plan in the past to try to take care of it, but as people change sometimes, then things change. And that was the building and operations manager. In the past, there was a process where we had to declare all of our surplus and then put it in storage if nobody in the county wanted it. And then that has changed over the years, and so...
I think the board still needs to declare surplus. And
yes, I think you do.
And we just don't warehouse it anymore.
We don't warehouse it like it used to be. Do you guys have...
Yeah, we've got it. So, I don't... Just looking at these pictures, I'd say probably 80% of this stuff is easily determined, good to go. Probably needs to be somehow, but I don't know that, metal recycling is the first. It seems like the last, and not a bad way to do it, but just what there's different tiers, stuff we want to look at, get somebody in there to say, is this worth anything? Because there is a commercial lawnmower, looking at these pictures, that the seat is worn out, so that's a good indication to me that there might be useful life left in that lawnmower. If it had an appropriate, I guess the carriage is in the front there. If we're missing a bolt to put the carriage and the lawnmower together because the seat still looks good and it's got useful life, I don't want to say, well, we need to scrap it. You know what I mean?
Well, we have gone over the things that are there, and they're not repairable. We've had people come and look at them, and they're like, I don't want that. But we haven't. We thought, well, we could put a list out to everyone in the county to see who wants it, but why would anyone want this broken junk? And the lawnmower that looks decent, it needs 3 parts, and they're little pulleys. They're no longer available on the market. We researched, we couldn't find them, and so the best price we got were $1,500 for each part on a lawnmower that was built in the 70s. It's just not practical.
Sounds good.
Anyway, partly, due to short staffing too, Simon, and
Sure.
the amount of time.
How much
that
time do you have to dedicate to that?
Yeah, we're just really kind of hoping to clean up our yard, get some money, and get a good lawnmower, and do it all in one fell swoop.
Any thoughts?
The phrase, "get her done," I think is a good phrase.
Excuse me, if you've had people look at these, and I know what you mean when the part is more expensive and harder to get than it is to buy another piece of equipment. I have one of those myself, and there's no market for it because anybody who buys it can't get the part either.
Exactly.
So, I can understand that. So who have you talked to in regards to recycling?
Just over the years, we've had guys that are mechanics that come in and look at our machines. We've taken them to a place in Medford, a tractor. That's where we take our backhoe to be fixed, and I can't remember the name of the company. I can provide that for you guys if you wish. But
I just wondered if it was someone local.
They do.
There's a lot of local.
Well, guys come in, and sometimes we'll have them take a look and say, "Hey, what do you think of this piece of equipment?" And we get the same thing from everybody. It's like, get rid of it.
You have someone though, I think the question was that you're proposing that all this be recycled through a metal dealer or something.
Right.
Are you talking about local here? Yeah.
So the caveat with having somebody either come in, if it is a scrapper, or a mechanic saying, it's kind of like, yeah, you should get rid of this.
And give it to me.
You can give it to me, and I'll give you $100 for it when I know I can go across the street and make $150 or something. And there's just a certain element of responsibility we have with public assets to do our due diligence to make sure they're nothing we're going to need in the future. It looks like most of this stuff hasn't been. My rule of thumb: if you haven't used it in the last 5 years on the ranch, you don't need it. And if you do, you're going to have to find it somewhere, your neighbor, or go rent one, because otherwise it's just taking up valuable space in your yard now, especially because you're sharing it with forestry and stuff.
Yeah, they're inoperable.
Yeah.
Well, one thing I was wondering though is some of the attachment to it, like some of these tanks, which I presume are either herbicide or pesticide tanks. Is there a market for things like that for some of the attachments and some of the wheels?
Could you get more on Craigslist? A couple of minutes.
The cost of doing all that work.
Yep. Absolutely. Cost-benefit analysis.
Yeah, I just,
Is it $1.70 a ton, as it said there? Is that a fairly reasonable price?
It is.
Well, and that is the shop around, so you don't have to. Somebody's going to give you a $2.25 or something.
Right. Well, I didn't do the shopping around, but my senior ranger did.
Okay.
He's pretty thorough.
Yeah.
okay.
And it does. The price varies. It'll go way up and it'll drop way down. So at the time,
I know. Talking to Ward Ockenden, he had that bus out there. It was totally destroyed. Price went through the roof. He had to cut it up in a weekend or something like that. A 30-foot, 40-foot bus or whatever. He did it. He has a plasma cutter, and it was gone and on a truck to Portland by Monday. So, all right, let's move this forward, I guess.
Okay.
Anything else, Doreen? You're not on a report.
No, I'm not on it for
your money. Okay, great. Are you? Yes, please. As far as I'm concerned, I think it's fairly administrative. Are you part of the executive session later on today?
no, but
Okay.
I could be. If you
I can either give you a report when it's over, or you can stick around, but I'm not sure when it's going to happen, so it might be best I'll give you a report if you don't want to stick around.
Thank you.
Sounds great. Planning, Mr. Wagner. Confirm the decision to cancel evidentiary remand hearing set for January 16th, 2013. This was recommended by Commissioner Haugen, and I think it's probably a pretty good idea. After he left office, he was just a little concerned that maybe the board didn't do something that we sent out a notice saying that we did. And we don't have a history of having it go through that process. In the past, we received a notice from the applicant that they weren't ready, or it wasn't ready to go, wanted to cancel the hearing. Dave and I had a conversation with liaison and the director of planning that, okay, so what about setting a date and time certain, killing two birds with one stone? Yes, we're going to cancel the hearing because the applicant isn't ready. but maybe setting the next opportunity to get together either in February or just down the road in the same mailing, because there's a lot of people involved in this. And the applicant wasn't ready to do that at that point, but it doesn't require a full action of the board to change the hearing. We don't need to formally do that. What we do need to do is, what was the word? Ratify kind of a
essentially
mailing that went out.
Yeah, acknowledging the mailing that went out, and I think what Commissioner Hagen objected to was that the mailing said the Josephine County Board of Commissioners has canceled the evidentiary hearing. Actually, the publication never went to the paper, but we sent out the notice to the neighborhood ahead of time, well ahead of that notice.
Yeah.
We had plenty of notice
Right.
Given to them. It's a little unusual in this regard. Remand hearings are different because they go to the board outside of the normal process. We've only done a couple of them in the last 5-6 years. So in this case, I think we're just going to look at that language in the notice and just say the hearing's been canceled rather than the commissioners actually took an action. I think that was
There's no paper trail to it.
So
if we put that on
the hearing was scheduled for the 16th, so I guess we're asking for the board to acknowledge that today. And we've already sent the notice out to the neighborhood. So,
how does the board feel about just putting this on the consent calendar, just kind of ratifying this, but in the future we change the wording and the director and the liaison or actually, frankly, it's the chair and the liaison work on getting the schedule for the board to match up, because sometimes we've had, even for the urban growth boundary hearing, it didn't necessarily match up with what the board's timing was on when they were available. So that's something the liaison or the chair or whoever and the director work it out where it works for all of you.
Just to ratify the notice?
Yeah, just to ratify.
That's fine.
Great. Anything else?
on this particular issue, we'll come back on remand hearings. One of the issues that's come up in this particular case, and it may come up again, is that state law requires that an applicant who's received a direction from LUBA and it's been remanded back to the county, they have to apply for a remand hearing within 45 days of that notice. For a comp plan zone change, if it involves a change to the comprehensive plan, the county is not bound to a typical state time frame of 90 days to hold the hearing. That hearing date can be pushed out. So if there's nothing that compels us to hold the hearing within 3 months after the request, there's also nothing compelling us to hang on to it. And so I think we need to make a decision in cases where, in this particular case, we've had it for more than 2 years. We've had the request for remand hearing, and the applicant has asked us to put that on hold. And I think at a certain point we need to fish or cut bait. So we'll come back to the board soon in the future meeting and ask you to make a decision on that particular application. We're going to go ahead and schedule a hearing and hear the matter.
Whether the applicant
can withdraw their application.
Right.
So
one of them's going to have
I think old files in my office or something I try to avoid. So
that's good for us to have that on the horizon.
We'll come back to you again in the future now.
Great.
We're going to do it under HR.
All right. Thank you, Mr. Wagner. Ms. Moy. Position requisition replace existing classification in community corrections home detention specialist with community corrections case specialist. And Mr. Huntley and Ms. Moy.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon, Commissioners. It's really hard not to say good morning on
I
these
know.
days.
Good morning. So we have a position requisition form here, and it's replacing existing classification. So, Abe, do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, this is really in response to the loss of offenders coming through the door and loss of revenue that we've seen in the last few months, largely in part due to the loss of our prosecution, which has really affected our programs, particularly our work crew community service program and our home detention program. A lot of those programs use misdemeanor offenders that were sentenced and doing jail time in the community or sentenced directly to work crews. So what we've seen is in response to that loss, we've got quite a budget deficit, and we had to do some rearranging. In short, I guess I can't really afford to have a full-time FTE and a half-time program.
Right.
So that would be our home detention program right now. So what we've done, the case specialist position as it was created originally was really a utility player to help in all the programs in the department. There's one particular piece, and that's what we want to do with our home detention specialist, is to move him down to this case specialist position. It's a drop from an A15 to an A14, save a little bit of money there, but really it's going to allow him to do half-time home detention and then help out in our work group program, in which we just had a layoff. So it will allow him, so the change in the case specialist position is simply, if you read through that description, it really allows that person to do and assist in almost any program in the department where we need them, with the exception of one, and that was to actually take crews out. So that's the change, is to the case specialist position is to allow that person to actually take a work crew out in the field when we need him. Be about half-time doing that and a half-time working the home detention program, and the numbers support that now. Also allows him to do a little bit of the lead work crew work, which is going out and talking to the job contacts, setting up the contract positions in the community, keeping the tools in line, making those purchases when needed, make sure the guys have what they need to do the jobs. So that's what we're asking for.
Commissioner Heck?
Fine.
Okay. Commissioner Walker?
I think it's fine.
Great.
I think, trying to be more efficient and still provide the services a challenge.
Yeah. What's your budget hole, and how far is this going to filling that need?
The budget hole as of a couple months ago was about $150,000 projected out to the end of the fiscal year.
One component.
This is one component of a few adjustments we've made that will get us, I hope, balanced by the end of the year. We're also looking at some new contracts, maybe it's bringing some new revenues. So between the two, might be able to do it by the end of the year.
Great. So it all comes together. The other thing is, I'm sure you've had a conversation with the district attorney, but he just happens to be in the audience as far as his forecast for prosecutions and where, so this is one adjustment. I'm sure you're in conversation about what things are looking like right now, given that we did make an adjustment, but it wasn't, that's all kind of filtered out. So
we're actually starting to reap some of the benefits of those adjustments you've made.
Okay.
And District Attorney,
if you want, Stephen, I don't know. Yeah, I'd like to know if you could.
Well, I had a resignation. I just about came down and asked you to give me an extra half time. Maybe I should right now. I'm trying to hire a half-time deputy DA. I moved the half-time up to full-time, but the 1.5 helped substantially. We were basically doing very few misdemeanors, and we've upped that quite a bit. So, we're seeing the collateral damage in not only corrections budget. Doreen Ferguson has mentioned lately that their parks are behind because Abe can't send work crew over. And this is all because we can't send them people.
The ripple effect.
And also the local private treatment facilities are having problems now, and they have to lay off people. So, because we're just not getting enough of them prosecuted. But we have improved the numbers, particularly in driving under the influence. We've handled a lot more of those cases, and that's, I think, a lot of those clients that they can get into treatment programs, and some on work crews that have jail sentences that they never see the jail.
What I'm worried about is we've got, some transitional stuff, some turmoil. I'd call it turmoil in your office, things that are shifting around. And if we're down by a half person, it's probably, if you're looking at the bottom of the spectrum as far as what you're prosecuting, and if that half-time person is where we're seeing that change, how's that going to affect, if we're making this change now, are we going to have to ramp back up if there is that change, or is it going to have to go further down? I'm trying to get kind of a forecast, because we're right at the middle of the year, fiscally. So let's do as best we can with an adjustment, and I'm sure you are, but hearing from you is really pretty key on this top of the puzzle type of stuff, and then there's all this trickle down with how it works throughout the system. So trying to get a good read on what you can, if you can. is really helpful.
I'm not sure what you're asking.
Well,
I wasn't quite sure what you were asking either.
Let me just explain this. When I had 9, the bottom 2, my deputy DA 1s and low 2s, and I think I had 2 1s, actually had the largest caseload.
right.
Because they're handling misdemeanors with 1 and 2 witnesses, so they can take a huge number, relatively large number of cases compared to complicated felonies.
Yeah.
So we're talking 400 cases on a couple of those cases. But those things are moving
A little
much
bit better.
more quickly. We're getting pleas. We're sending them to corrections. They're not supervising the misdemeanors very often. They do occasionally just because the court requests it, because they don't get paid for that. But they are putting them in work programs. They're managing their custody units, and so they have a supervisory authority that is working for, and they're moving those on work crews and so forth. So we're adding more of those people back. Are you asking?
You're not anticipating any kind of a shift dramatic enough to where this adjustment right now, if we just hold our breath a little bit longer, we could get to a point where it pays for itself again, or no? This is the point at which you're making a decision.
Yeah, what he's been seeing in the last couple months is what he's going to see with what I've got now.
Okay.
I can improve that some.
It'll be marginal.
With another half if we can get that. But,
I should say also that the home detention program, that the offenders pay for that program. So it was at one time when the system was whole self-supporting, and we had 25 to 30 people monitored at any given time. So I think the real question here for planning and budgeting is, can we keep Stephen's office at the level he's at now through next fiscal year, and then that allows me to plan for these other programs.
Sure. So that's our goal.
Yeah.
To do that.
And this position that we're talking about allows me to use that utility player and wherever the programs might need it.
Okay.
If it starts to ramp up, I can move him to the crews in the community on the home detention program. And if we need to, if it looks better and my budget's okay, then maybe we can bring back another person for the work crew if we can get some new contracts.
Okay, great.
So
that's kind of what I wanted to know.
So I hope you can keep him whole through next year, and that will help everybody.
Just keep not looking at Rosemary. Yep.
Okay.
Thank you very much. I think we can move this forward to the consent calendar if you're amiable to that. Sarah? Next. Position, requisition, replace existing classification in Sheriff's Office. We got 2 of those. Thanks a lot, Abe.
You're welcome.
First one is Chief Administrative Supervisor with Senior Admin Supervisor. And replace existing classification in Sheriff's Office, Administrative Assistant and Admin Budget Specialist. So, help us work through what those really mean.
And these two are related, and you might recall that we recently created the Chief Administrative Supervisor position, but based on a current review of the needs of the department, you'll have a different proposal here, and we worked out some job descriptions on that.
Yeah, what we've done is we've taken 6 positions and pulled them down into 2, and we've divided the jobs into those 2 positions. And I think we can be more effective, more efficient, and we're still saving well in excess of $29,000. So I think we're doing what we have to do. Everything's fluid, and we're trying to move along and change as we need. I realize we just went through one of these, but as Sarah said, we've looked at it, we've done an assessment on it, and we think we can do a better job of switching it back to yet something else. Like I say, we're reducing 6 positions into 2, and I think
how it shakes out,
and still saving money doing it. So I think it's a better way to move forward.
You talked about a request so that we have maybe like an idea of for me too, like an org chart kind of a style of what this shift means strategically within your office. So that we have a frame of reference, I think, for where you're going.
I'll email that to you.
That'd be
We've
great.
modified it to in accordance with it, so I'll send it to all of
great.
you.
Some updated versions of the county ones with this change in it also.
Okay.
I'll from the current and then the newly proposed.
Great.
It's replacing 2 existing positions with these 2. It's not adding any positions. But you'll see there's a greater focus with this replacement on the budget side of it. And that's something that they felt they needed strongly right now.
So you said it was taking 6 and putting them into 2.
This action isn't.
No, but that's what you've done. That's what you've done.
Right.
So where do these fit with those 2 that you currently have working? Are these? Because one's a supervisor, one's a specialist.
Yeah, the specialist is going to pretty much focus on budgetary issues. And the administrator is going, is the, what do we call it, administrative...
Senior administrative
yeah,
supervisor.
Is going to encompass supervision and some other assets that are relative to that position. So I think it's just a better use of our personnel.
Okay.
Is there any budgetary implication?
There is a savings.
Yeah. Over 29,000.
We
Cumulative.
started with a business manager that was a fairly high-paid position, then it was downgraded to the chief administration supervisor, and basically they split that position again to better fit the needs of the office. So it is a savings, even for the next 6 months, there will be still a savings because that business manager was also at top.
Okay, and that's how you've because I actually, we didn't have that conversation about what are you doing to replace that position, and you've decided to.
We divided the responsibilities into 2. And frankly, if we need to be fluid, we need to modify as time moves forward. We'll come back as a robust agency. I'll again come back and present something different.
Sure.
Like I say, we just want to be effective and efficient, and so you may see me again.
We may not see it in 6 months. We may see it tomorrow.
Exactly.
So, okay. Well, I think we understand that. I certainly do. You know, with what you're trying to put together, and it's a new machine over there. So, anything else?
I just want to again bring up the point that the SOS group has really put a lot of effort into where they are today, and we need to do a lot more work in developing some proposal that is going to take us into the future and
I think
meet the expectations.
Yeah, what we present needs to somehow match what we can accomplish.
Yeah, and I don't know in detail how much communication that SOS or its representatives have had with you and the Sheriff's Department leading to this point, but one would hope that there's nothing but an open door from both sides to discuss things, because obviously the timeline is very short, and the last thing that's needed is for the SOS to be calling you or your department and finding out that we got a week and a half out, and that's you got a week and a half.
Well, there's been a lot of mix-up in different numbers being provided, and Rosemary worked with us yesterday, and so that we're on the same sheet of music, and we just need to pull this together, and we need to do it quickly.
Yeah.
You will be there next Friday?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
All righty. Thank you so much. Thanks.
Thank you.
So you want us to determine a rate, or do we just have to go with the CPI?
So your COLA, CPI is 1.7 unless the board chooses to make it a different rate or freeze COLA.
Sure.
So the determination does need to be made.
What did we do last year?
Last year it was 3.8, same as the unions. And then this year all unions are taking a 0 except for FAFO, and that's an 8-person unit. They took a 0 last year when the rest got a 3.8. It was in their contract, and they got a 1.7.
So if we were to be consistent with the unions negotiating, we kept it to 0.
0. This year is 0 except for FAFO.
So we would hold this one to that same point. Given the fiscal constraints, our argument's pretty pretty strong in that.
And that's what we build into this year's budget with the zero COLA.
Right.
Except for FICA. That's been the board's direction over the last year.
The consideration is over time, our non-union employee compensation is not necessarily keeping up with what's negotiated at the union level, and that's where the consideration needs to come in. Is that some of these, there's no technical compression there, but you're getting to a point where some of the over time people within a department are right there, non-supervisory, but making pretty close to what the supervisor is with none of the same responsibility. So we just need to be cognizant of that over time. That's the big deal. The larger deal is the fiscal situation we have. That if at all possible, I think we're going to have to probably move forward on keeping it consistent with what we've negotiated with the unions. That's my position, but if there's more discussion that's needed.
The elected officials
totally different.
Compensation Committee.
So,
This isn't the elected official.
No, but I'm talking about
That will be convened pretty soon and make a recommendation to the budget committee usually in March or April.
and this year it would be nice to see when was the last time that elected officials they actually received a cost of living. When was that done?
6 years ago, at least.
I mean, just to have it there. I mean, and to because in 5 years, if I was getting $1,000 5 years, and I'm not talking about me personally, I'm talking about some of the other elected officials. If they were getting $1,000 5 years ago, they're getting $920 today or something. Whatever, just because
5 years.
inflation.
Last year was CPI was 3.8. This year 1.7. Cumulatively, that's 4, 5, 4. Over 5 years, it starts.
Yeah.
And we're seeing compression. I feel compression sometimes with our managers and what electeds are, and just from my perspective, we're doing a cost savings to the citizens by not having an administrator of a county that, up until a year ago was a $110 million budget. That, you're saving. If you go over to Jackson County and you do the math, or a comparative county, there's a $200,000 compensation salary and package that it's an unavoided cost or a redistributed benefit that the citizens are appreciating by not having a county administrator. So you could get into all these philosophicals about how we're actually spending more because we don't have somebody who's watching, over all of these things from an administrative standpoint. But I don't know. You can argue that one.
What has been the increase in cost that the employees have paid on their benefits? Have they paid any increase on their benefits?
It went up like 30.
This year wasn't bad. It was about 25% increase the year before, but this past year, depending on what module selection, and then there's voluntary dental for families. But it was very minimal this year. It was about a 12 on the dental, but 0 on medical, and that's the big player.
They're not. Dental is voluntary
for family members, so employee-only dental no cost. So if they had their full family added, then their increase was fairly substantial. But I can get you the history, the rate increase history for that if you would like, and I can get you the elected official COLA increase history as well.
Well, I'm looking at these criteria, factors to consider. County's economic condition and ability to pay. We're laying people off.
Right.
And
that's how we're at zero. So we don't really need to discuss it too much.
Yeah.
We're at zero.
So we're laying. So there we are. And then
the medical was a 0.
Yeah.
It was about a $25 per pay period hit for the dental full family coverage, which is very minimal compared to the prior years.
Okay.
Well, we do need to have the board make a decision on Wednesday if they're going to do 0 COLA.
Right.
So we can build it into the payroll.
Right. Do we need to do that by order? So we need an order prepared, or how have we done that?
A motion.
Just a motion? Okay. Well, I won't be there, so you guys are prepared to act on that. I suggest somehow addressing it under the administrative calendar is appropriate, that we have that discussion.
So we'll do a motion on Wednesday.
For the zero call. Is that what you said?
Well, I won't be there. You guys get to decide. But my recommendation is for a 0. Wish we could do something different, but not in the light of where we're at.
And then Rosemary mentioned GIS transfer department. So if the board would like to entertain that at this point in time, I could have the paperwork ready for Wednesday adoption.
We haven't addressed that as a board, but I'd be happy to do so now. In light of our need for the pilot project, Executive Order 1207, to do with the regionality of marginal farm and forest line, well, there's funding associated with this, but I don't know that we're necessarily there on that. We're going to kind of work it out. So the recommendation from Mr. Weckner, Rosemary, and Sarah is to put together, and I shouldn't speak for you because I don't know if it's your recommendation too, but it's our recommendation to say that it makes a lot of sense to put the GIS staffer in the planning office under the direction of the director there, because there's a lot of responsibility as far as in this first little bit with planning. It's frankly a lot GIS, and every county's having to go through this. A lot of them, it probably wouldn't be a big deal because they have 3 or 4 people in their GIS. We have a half-time person associated with this. So to mitigate all of the other responsibilities that they have, might need to increase the time that they're spending in the office working on county GIS stuff. So putting him over there in Dave's office to where he's not having to run over to IT, which is where he currently housed, makes a lot of sense. And giving him the direction that Dave's the director, and that's who he needs to work with. So there won't be a budgetary implication, at a general funds or the planning's office, because we have there's $300,000 left over after you pay RV COG, $100,000 maybe per county, and this is a portion of that.
Each county
that funding
needs $16,000, and I have put together a budget that the board's seen, which kind of appropriates what money Josephine County is going to use, how much of it goes to planning, how much to GIS,
right,
and even a portion for the police office. So, this is GIS manager's timesheet essentially will look like it's part-time with the rest of his duties, and then whatever is billed to the grant. So there's no budgetary impact.
So we're asking for, at this point, a temporary reassignment of supervision. Then we'll assess it at the, as we go down the road as to whether or not we need to change the job description, which now assigns the supervision to the IT manager, which is under my direction, and then look at the FTE levels. This part-time position is funded out of recording fees for specific GIS purposes. So there's no general fund dollars involved in this at all, either way we go. But for right now, it just makes sense to reassign the supervision while relocating to planning, because that's where the bulk of his work will be for at least the next 3 months or so. Plus there's a big building safety project that we have to finish up so we can go forward with our e-permitting, so they'll all be in the same building.
Part of the context to this is we're looking at possibly purchasing a new GIS software. The assessor's office is going through a 2-year transition in their software. There's a lot of moving parts on all of these things. The GIS plays a role in. We haven't even asked Public Works about stuff. So, it just goes one thing after the other. But we're going to need to be a little dynamic, I think. But for right now, this is the move we need to make.
This is the first step, and we do have office space for it, so there's no expansion.
So let's move that forward. I think that's a consent calendar.
That was my only question. You got space you're comfortable with?
Yeah, right next door.
You might be, but I don't know.
No, he is.
We'll all try to behave ourselves.
Yep.
The GIS manager formerly did work in the planning office too, so this is just a return to where he's been before.
This is a little off topic, but do you work much with the surveyors?
Peter Allen? Yes.
You do. Thank you.
Okay.
Anything else? Great. We're going to have a recommendation for Brian Johnson's job description at some point. Ryan Johnson, Building and Facilities.
That should be on next week, and also Diane's got a lead animal control officer.
Right.
Thank you.
Thank you. Hey.
Shortest item of the day, I promise. Get the average cash rundown. I guess just a bit of backstory for our two new commissioners. The two bridges that we've got in front of us, these are HVP bridges, and I think Keith certainly heard this story. We're able to apply for bridges through the federal programs. It goes through the state. We basically built a 10% match on these types of bridges. We're as aggressive as we can be because in this case we're leveraging about $300,000 to get $3 million of bridges, which would otherwise represent almost 50% of an annual budget. So we're very aggressive in going after these. It's all related to a sufficiency rating of the bridge on a score of 0 to 100. When they get below a certain point, you can apply. So the two you've got in front of you will be for construction in 2014. And that's probably the most exciting part. The boring part now is effectively just a boilerplate change to the two contracts that the previous board had already signed off on. If it looks familiar,
my signature's all over these.
Yeah, what happened was the board signed them, we got them back to ODOT. ODOT had an additional change before they finalized them, so from what you're looking at, it has not changed on our end at all.
All right.
The change that we did sign off on the previous time was actually just moving some of the benchmark dates within the construction frame, but the completion dates are the same as they were. So
I thought I was looking at Applegate.
Deja vu all over again.
No, but we're saying Lake Shore and Deer Creek and stuff.
And if you're not familiar with the two, Slate Creek is about a half mile on the other side of Wonder. Take a right as you're heading out towards Ivy and up the road there, and then Lake Shore is obviously out there just east of Lake Selmac for that bridge.
Any budgetary implication?
No, we've already got the initial 10%. So
yeah, and I did review these. You're saying Lake Shore, but it says Deer Creek.
Deer Creek on Lake Shore Road, yeah.
Oh,
it's a little confusing when you get in.
Sounds good to me. I don't need you to come on Wednesday, so it's a consent calendar item for me. But I won't be there, so.
Did you keep saying
You
that?
want to say that? Well, I just
your joy.
I tell you what, if I come back. So when I always have that thought, I should just keep driving. I review the consent calendar, so I just give a brief overview of everything we're going to take action on, and I don't know if that meets with what you guys would like to do, but that alleviates having to have a director come here and say one sentence about something that, anybody we can definitely just do on our own. Otherwise, it depends on all of these things, Madam Vice Chair, however you want to run your weekly business session, and if you want somebody on for discussing any one of these items before the citizenry at the weekly business session, that's totally up to you.
I'm comfortable with whatever Vice Chair determines.
With her handling it?
Vice Chair determines she wants him to make the statement.
Would it be helpful for like a one-paragraph blurb?
That would be helpful.
Okay, I will find
That would be helpful. That would summarize it for me rather than me trying to summarize.
Absolutely.
If you're coming in, frankly, this is the tail end. We didn't expect this, so that would be helpful.
I will get some off to it.
That would be helpful.
On any one of those, you need.
On anybody that has a consent calendar item.
Great.
Maybe we just one paragraph on the consent calendar item.
You got it. All righty. Well, thank you so much. Don't want to keep you here. Try to get you under the shortest.
I was actually
had a conversation with Skundrick today. He's happy with the MPO structure. We're good to go on that. And I'd like a report eventually on the STIP stuff, but you and I could probably do that and then bring a recommendation. I did a recap of what I had, the 4 or 5 projects that are Josephine County centric, but then ours specifically. So
it went well, yeah. And
good.
There's been some additional discussions with the city, looking at phasing the fruit down all week, and we can get together now.
I tell Skundrick, he has to be there on a couple of these for some reason. I don't remember what it was I had, but for carrying the water with the city about the proportionality. Because if the 2 other board members would have had their way, Jackson County would have been out.
But it's great.
Yep. So your predecessor.
That wasn't
your predecessor. So
wasn't us board.
It's good. We did well. Thanks, Rob.
Have a good weekend.
CFO business update and report.
I'm going to do real quick because of the length of ours, and we do have a date for the mid-year audit review, and the supplemental budget will be February 6th. And that's for two reasons. One, to accommodate the auditor who comes out of Eugene, and to allow us enough time to do the publications for the supplemental. We'll be bringing a review to you before February 6th of what we're looking at in the supplemental. The majority of it was the allotments of the monies that were received from the federal government to public safety, so we changed a number of those budgets. So that's the majority of it that we'll be bringing to you. But we'll have discussion about that before February 6th, just where we're looking at. We're putting those together now. And I'm in the process right now of uploading 4 of the error reports for our stimulus monies. We're required to report quarterly. So after today's meeting, I'll be uploading those. Those are due on Monday. And then I can give you a brief report about what those are and bring you up to date on where we're at on those. And that's all I've got for right now.
I'm trying to think about it. If there's anything I need to know.
I should tell the new board too, when I sign off on a HR form, I'm signing off that it meets budgetary requirements. If my signature is not there, then I will explain to you that it's going to impact the budget, or it's going to do something that doesn't fit into the criteria under the budget. But if my signature is on there, then it means that it fits within the current budgetary requirements.
I was going to ask that. There's the budgetary authority code, where the funding source is from. There isn't. What I'm always looking for is there any impact to the budget? I don't know what that is here, and it's not written in, and I appreciate that you're taking, but I want to know. I think I do. I know that maybe sometimes we don't want to put that out there, that there is an adjustment, but I think we're going to need to include that on this cover sheet.
Oh, we can do that.
I think we need to do that. That's the first thing I keep looking for. So it took me a year, I apologize, to get to the point of where I'm reviewing these personnel deals. So we're going to see a lot of these. It might take you a couple of minutes to just go through and read every single one of those, but when the box is checked off, that's one you have to look at, and that's the implication and changing of the title, existing position, regular FTE. There's a lot of acronyms on this page. If you have questions or something, and I encourage you to talk with Sarah about what all those little boxes and stuff get checked off. The implications of changing something from a 0.8 to a 0.9 to a full-time. We provide benefits at 0.9. We don't at 8 most of the time.
For asking
for all of the benefits. We do some benefits, I think, sometimes at 0.8. But anyway, there's a whole class that could be taught on all that stuff. So
it'll take me about 5 days, but I got that under control.
That's great. You didn't come into the same situation I did. I had a question on the fairgrounds budget. The fair is looking at trying to negotiate with Southern Oregon Horse Racing Association to take over the management of the fair, the horse racing season. And I'm confident they're going to be able to do that. They're looking at requesting, $18,000 worth of revenue. I think that's low. I think they're not doing them any favors by providing an entire facility for what could be up to 3 months. I think the board needs to have a candid discussion with the CFO probably on Monday if possible. And when we have their proposed budget, you know where they are fiscally halfway through the year, and we need to give them some direction as far as, that's not going to fly. You're not going to be able to do a fair this year. You need to go dark. Everything's fine, status quo. Your budget looks great, but that needs to probably be a discussion we had a week ago. But okay.
Yeah, especially when you start looking at some of those figures that say $250,000 in the red or something, and you're talking about $20,000 for the, that's.
It takes a lot of horse race rentals.
Oh yeah.
We don't have enough months in the year, and
I'd like to discuss that. Sure.
Okay, that's the big one that's sitting out there for me.
You want that on general discussion Monday?
Yeah.
I'll put the packet together of the previous information that they put together a budget, and we did a summary of where they'd end up in as a deficit, and then they had their potential offset. So we'll put that information together for you.
Are you talking about the fairgrounds, the fair, or the horse racing?
The fairgrounds.
The fairgrounds.
All of it.
Yeah.
All of it.
Okay.
Future of the fair.
Yeah.
Basically. All right. Anything else from commissioners?
I would like to have, whether it's going to be discussed on some future time or whatever, but I would like to have an established timeline that we have as to the completion of this television coverage process, because otherwise it just gets further out, and we're still, oh yeah, we've got to discuss that. But have it some incumbency on us to say we have to have some decision made by whatever the date is. What the heck is going on with that thing?
I don't know if you're allowed to use that word.
Yeah, he's a family name.
What the heck, you can't.
Yeah. How can we restrict them?
That's right, can't we?
Are you liaison to RVT Channel 14? Are you in charge of that?
No, I think I am.
Oh, that's too bad.
I just
for you.
I could reassign it to Mr.
Yeah, right.
Since he has such an interest in it.
I was gonna say.
Assign that to Mr. Heck.
May look different if you were
Yeah, no.
Sure, I think that sounds great. I'm for that on everything, except for my stuff.
Yeah.
Yeah, no, let's do it.
And I just gave the packet to Cherryl today about, with the background information and that on the PEG fund and the proposals for the camera work, basically the equipment we purchased. So she just got that literally today.
I think one element.
An hour before this meeting.
Yeah, no, and I think one element is, kind of, I don't know if we're working back or what, but when does that equipment come? I mean, has it been ordered?
It's been ordered.
It gets here, and we really probably couldn't do too much before that gets here. So
Well, we have a plan.
no, I think that. But if you're going to do a timeline,
Yeah.
starts probably there and then goes forward.
Yeah. So I
don't
think just
know.
have something established.
Do you want that by June?
For the sake of the argument,
I'm working for you, Cheryl.
for the sake of the argument, let's just say it's going to be September 1st. Okay, that's fine. Now at least we have a drop dead date.
Yeah.
Right now, I don't think we have any.
No.
Okay.
Only, charter not sending that
Yeah.
check, and then we
Yeah.
end their franchise. And, I don't know.
Now I know why you're sitting there. I'm the one
Yeah.
that's eating corn.
Yeah, I think it's great. Just
Another point is not on that one. And I'm not sure, I'm new, so if I'm saying something out of school, there are, especially with the readjustment of staff and personnel and all this other stuff, we move into having employees that are, and I'm just using a hypothetical, employees that are like 17, 18 years in, they have 2 to 3 years of work before they have to retire or they want to retire. And maybe they would retire right now if they had some of the financial compensation to allow that, which would be even could be a break even as far as the cost goes or whatever, is to have the possibility of offering those kind of employees
a severance,
some whatever we want to call it, which would close that door, also open the door for other folks.
You're just talking about non-union employees right now.
Oh, I'm not
just kidding.
I'm not talking about non-union. I'm just talking about the concept.
Sure.
And to have that as a discussion item, I think would be profitable for us.
Well, I think we certainly can, and we can probably do it under the auspices of an executive order, an executive session. So, because the freedom to be able to say some of the things we'd like to say, we can't do right now. So we'll get there. I'll put it together.
Yeah.
Probably, I'll talk with HR and Rosemary. We'll do maybe a back of the envelope.
Yeah.
Maybe there aren't any of those hypotheticals, or maybe we've got 3, or we've got a dozen. We'll see.
Third, what is the process on these minutes of making
Adjustments?
adjustments to it.
That's done at our staff meeting
Okay, so...
later on today.
Okay.
Do we have any of those? Are you looking at the old ones?
Well, on the December 13th, it's just a wording. It's
Well, those haven't been adopted yet, so sure, we can make adjustments.
Commissioner
I'm not really
Reed
sure what we're doing with them yet, but...
asked what would happen if the city does not wish to be included. I'd like to have the city of Grants Pass does not wish to be included. Just to have that, because we have two cities in the county, not just the city.
It depends on what was said.
Well, this is talking about the initiating of the formation of law enforcement district.
Right, but we have two cities. So if the city, being any one of them, was discussed, if it didn't specify Grants Pass, then it's just going to stay as...
What would happen if the city does not wish to be included?
Right. If that's what was said, that's what's going to stay. If they specified the city of Grants Pass, then we could change it. But we reflect what is said, not what's intended.
And I realize that, and I know that his reflection was that the city of Grants Pass, and or the city of Cape Junction.
All right, we can have this. Well, we'll have to figure out what I'm going to do with those minutes, because these two fine commissioners weren't here.
Doesn't matter. There's minutes.
I know, but I'm not. Well, I'm going to work on that.
Okay.
I haven't done that yet.
So we need to say A instead of so A city.
Yeah, AC. Yeah,
you're right.
That makes it pretty
Yeah.
easy.
I have a question about process.
Yeah.
If there is something that we want to talk about in a general discussion, do we have to bring it up in a previous meeting like today,
No.
or just put it on the list?
You can put it on the list. You can bring it up the day of. If it's something you know in advance, like I just mentioned something, I don't remember what it was, but that'll go on the agenda when they do the publication. If you write it on the little sheet in a timely fashion before the publication goes out, it'll go out as a topic on the publication. But otherwise, you can bring it up anytime. You can bring up any issue you want at any time. Whether we take action on it or not depends on how timely it needs to happen. We make sure that we have a provision for other, and we cite the RORS so we can do that. So if we had to get something done today, we can take action here. It's just we try not to. Pat sites would much appreciate it if we did all of the decisions, as many as possible, over in the weekly business session. But sometimes we just have to do things. So, anything else for the good of the board? Liaison updates. Appreciate you guys coming this morning to the Oregon Solutions Sorority. I hope that was beneficial for you guys.
Yeah, and yesterday I went to the RV COG
Heard that was really
kind
good.
of a training seminar on the application process for grants and loans to, they call them all municipalities, of course, which is county, city, state. But anyway, the program was very well organized and it was very informative. I thought it was outstanding. I left a little bit early when they got down to some of the nitty-gritty of analyzing some of the financial things, which, as a commissioner we don't have to do. But the application process is what I really thought was beneficial to know how to begin, where to begin.
Good.
Also, the fact that you don't have to have everything lined up before you go to them. They'll help you do that.
Right.
I thought that was really good. So I also came back and asked Rosemary if we had any outstanding grants or loans, because you can only have two at a time due to the management issues with that. We only have one. We only have one that was a housing. So that opportunity is available to us. And I have a couple of ideas. So.
Great.
That was good.
If we went out for a grant or a loan, it's not in the same pool of the financing for decontaminating and tearing down the towers. So
No.
It's infrastructure finance. Yeah, CDBG.
Yeah.
Community
Development block grants.
Which we could use for that purpose if we decide to put in for that. But there's other grants right now where
But when we were exploring that, it's the city of Grants Pass that was going to apply for that grant on behalf of the county, because it's in the city. Okay, great. So
See, I thought the food bank.
it doesn't count against our balance. Good.
See, I thought the food bank was county, and Rosemary said it's not. It must be city because it's on city land.
It's like I don't
So the
remember
community, the CDBG was through the city and not the county, which is good, because I thought, gosh, if we just got that one, it's huge, and that would probably disqualify us because we have the other one, but not the case.
our last one was the auctions building, and that was 3 years ago.
Great. All right, if there's nothing further, I think we should come back to the Public Safety District and working out whatever concerns we have there through the hearing process. And what else were we going to talk about there?
Well, the only thing I'd like to make clear about that for the hearing next week is that the people who are going to be directly responsible for any of this, if it's approved by the voters, whether it be someone from the district attorney's office, someone from the sheriff's office, or parole, probation, whatever, that they need to be at that hearing, give a statement as to how it will affect them, how it will benefit them, at whatever level that's being discussed. They have some levels on here, but if they have a comment or statement about what would be a minimal level to maintain service or a level to restore service. Right. I'd like to see those kinds of
spectrum.
Spectrum for the testimony.
Okay.
And I also want to make it very clear that anybody out there that can get people from the public in the different areas, the different stakeholders in this, to come, because we need to hear from them too.
Yeah.
Because every one of those that are coming from a department have a vested interest. And granted, their vested interest is to serve the public, but if you don't have the members of the public themselves there, you don't know exactly what they want. And I don't, anybody in the county that is affected by this, and I think that there's a lot of us that have had situations or incidents, and it's becoming more common. You can't hardly go anywhere anymore without somebody saying, yeah, I had this happen, and nobody could come. I had it happen to me last week. So, it's a situation where we need to hear from people as to how it's affecting them. And I think by that story getting out, that it will be most helpful to people to see that, because oftentimes they say, well, I don't miss the service because I didn't have it. I lived out in the county, I never saw patrol. Well, why would that affect me for, juvenile justice? But now it's starting to show. And I think people need to come in and tell their stories. They really do. They need to be there, they need to hear what's going on, and they need to make their statement.
So for planning the agenda...
Sheriff would like to say something.
Sure.
You might consider maybe having a larger forum, larger auditorium or something. A lot of people are probably going to have something to say about this, good, bad, indifferent.
So this is going to be held over at Investor, right?
That's what it's scheduled for.
Yeah.
And I don't know what the noticing requirement is, because we did that to a date and time certain. I'm pretty sure we can't probably change the location.
I was just wondering if maybe over at the Flower Building or something.
Oh, yeah.
You could accommodate a lot of people.
Last time we tried to accommodate a large crowd for the UGB, we didn't get that many, but this is a different issue entirely. I mean,
well, that's
I don't know why anybody would want to come to the UGB service.
Yeah, I think it's 230 that can hold, but I don't know if we have that many chairs in there.
Oh, I don't think it's that much.
There, out
of
the Flower?
No, the Basker Building.
No, it's not that many.
I think it's 100.
180?
It's not.
I'm thinking it's more
I
like
know
146.
I know the number always seemed larger than what it would accommodate to me, but that's what the fire marshal.
146 seems like the number, and I think that's about what you can get. Pat, would you mind coming up for a little while? Is the spokesperson for the Security and Safety? Okay, so if we go back to what this is a proposal from a citizen group for the board to put on the ballot a district proposal that encompasses what you guys are proposing it to do. Right. And you've given us, kind of an outline and then some options to go over. How would you like to see this hearing go? I have an idea, but this is y'all's presentation, your opportunity to put what you want on the table here. I'd like to hear from you.
We heard what you said loud and clear today about making sure that we have all the major stakeholders together before the meeting.
Okay.
So the number is going to be at least, if not agreed on, at least everybody knows where we're coming from. So tentatively I'd have a meeting set up Monday between myself, Mr. Campbell, Sheriff Gilbertson. I was hoping to get perhaps you and Rosemary if she would come. Because I think it's very critical that we have, while we don't want to identify each individual component, make sure that the aggregate of the number is adequate to do what needs to be done.
Okay.
And if we don't all agree, at least we know we had some part of that process in there. So I think it's important we do that, and I was hoping if Monday afternoon, I'm thinking 2 or 3 o'clock. And I don't want to put you on the spot, but
Well, I think that's a great suggestion for getting it in the queue. The other thing is I'm not the liaison to the criminal justice system,
Right.
and I don't want to step on Commissioner Heck's toes.
Well,
That's
I'm
your...
going to be here anyway, so.
Can I have your Monday?
You just using that line?
I gotta just use that line.
okay, no, I work you. To be brutally honest,
We'll be here on the 18th.
You made a very, very firm position about what you want the total number to be or less. And I want to make sure when you get all the major players on there, we understand what is that parameter. So when we come forward with make a final recommendation.
Well, that's just my personal standpoint. Right. I could be, they could go for 289. I don't know, and it wouldn't matter what I said.
I will probably chat individually with you guys.
So I think that's probably a good idea to get a feel, because it's not just my opinion.
I know, yes.
So,
Well, I mean, in a public comment kind of a way,
yeah.
I would like to know, as a commissioner that has to make the decision, yes, this goes to we're going to stand behind it and see it go to a vote. And by seeing it going to a vote does not necessarily mean one is supporting of it or not either supporting of it. But to see it go to a vote, I think it's a waste of time and money to have it go to a vote, to have it pay for something that we can cripple along on for another 6 months.
Right.
That to me is counterproductive.
It's a very good position to be in, and I'm up until about 2 months ago, I had no clue about what the numbers were going to be.
Yeah.
And in fact, we tried to stay away from the numbers for obvious reasons.
Yeah.
So now that we're talking about numbers, we're trying to come up with them as quick as we can.
Yeah, and I think whatever the number is, it doesn't necessarily mean that every law enforcement person is going to now have new cars, new suits, new whatever. But what is necessary to at least
provide that adequate level of service we need, that baseline.
Yeah, and so we've been now 6 months with this financial tightness.
Right.
It takes a while for the word to get out and people to start to realize it. And when you have guys standing on the street in front of the local police department, having the chutzpah to tear up their misdemeanor ticket in front of the cop and throw it on the ground and say, basically, now what are you going to do, sucker?
Yeah.
That's a situation that breeds real societal concerns.
Right.
So to be able to have a system that what is needed, not what the maximum is.
Right.
What is that dollar figure?
Right.
And I think that's what we need to have some boundary to see where that is, and to say, okay, now that's the would really be super. We can get by with this, but we won't be able to prosecute misdemeanors. But we can get by, and this is the minimum needed. I personally would like to see this levy allow the district, the district to say whatever that maximum is, that's the maximum. Sustainable. And to have the freedom of the commissioners to say, let's say it passes, to be able to say, whatever that figure is, and I'm just using an arbitrary figure and say $1.50, that's going to be the figure. The commissioners could say, the minimum that we're going to see for the next 12 months is $1.30.
Right.
We can raise it, but it'll never go more than that $1.50 because that's what everybody said. We don't want to do it. Okay, but it could be less than that, but it can't be more than that. And I think that would be, I'd be very comfortable with that, and I think a lot of people would be comfortable with that. But to somehow limp along and to think, okay, we're gonna vote in some, and the only thing that's going to do is simply prolong the stinking agony of the process.
Well, we're doing that right now, Commissioner Heck. With all due respect, we're $5 million of unrealistic spending that we don't have a revenue stream for.
Right.
That expires in 18 months.
Yeah.
So we're not. I hear that. I hear what you're saying. I need 80 cents to maintain the status quo past a year and a half.
Whatever it is.
And so you can just do the math about what we're going to be able to appreciate at $1.50 is a 70 cents increase. And so, Rosemary's right. We need 218, which is probably, frankly, lower than what we really need. We probably need like 230 to really go back to where we were was in some people's minds an adequate level. We didn't have 24-hour patrol. You call in the evening when you're probably feeling most alone and nobody's going to come. That's So it's really tough to start saying what's adequate and what we would like. Dealing with the political reality of where, and it isn't today, it's another May, it's 5 months from now of where we're at. We're dealing with these in the negotiations with the governor, it's the conservation community, it's what they think right now. And I said it isn't right now. It's when Curry County shuts its doors in May. It's when Josephine County has to shut its doors in 18 months. It's when all of these other things, when it's a norm for people to see a picture of people running out of a jail or unprosecuted serious Measure 11 crimes in Josephine County. That's what you're negotiating against for that point. And for us, we need to plan of, what can we do to provide that picture. I thought we gave it a lot of good heart last time, and $1.99 was conservative,
right.
To be realistic.
And I think part of the perception is reality, and part of the reality that has been allowed to grow is that the SOS is making this proposal, right? And again, not Southern Organization, the security or safety, and I think that needs to be disabused quickly, is that these are simply recommendations that this community group is coming up with. It's not SOS is not some functioning political pact or something that is coming up with these things, and that bothers me.
You only have to go to one meeting and figure out right away that we're not organized.
Well, but what it is, the whole deal is it has to reflect what the community needs. We can't be just determining that from inside the courthouse, that, well, this is what you need, and this is what's adequate. That's what I'm looking for. I mean, we had this conversation a while ago, and as long as we're handing out a prescription for safety to the public, it's going to lose.
And that's where the problem is going to pass. This is, to me, is one of the strengths of this whole process, is that it is the groundswell trying to grow this thing.
Right. We'll refine the number. You tell us what you think you need.
Well, I heard something today that I hadn't heard before that I actually thought was a very good idea, and that came from you, Commissioner Hare, and that's about what do we do about school protection? I think that's foremost in a lot of people's minds at the moment, and I think it's worthwhile at least addressing.
I want to give the sheriff a lot of credit in readjusting his patrol's timeline. Historically, when we made the adjustment, schools weren't in. So you were focusing your patrols predominantly between the evening hours, 3 and 11, and because that's statistically where we saw a lot of the crime. But at the same time, these kids didn't get a chance to vote, and they're under the expectations, at least their parents are, they're going off to school, and they've got some semblance of some safety, and so he made that. I think that was one of the reasons for the switch and the adjustment.
It was, and keep in mind, the district we're talking about does not include patrol. Patrol is the element, and that's why it's so important that the general fund accommodates that, so that we can provide safety, because it's outside the district.
Well, it wouldn't necessarily have to be outside the district.
That's what I'm saying, is
Well,
I could tailor it to, at the very minimum, the district include that,
and that money is
as an element.
Federal money is available for school resource officers, but it's a matching fund.
Simon, Secretary, would the sheriff please come up here for a minute?
It's okay, Gil.
It's okay.
All right.
The question I have in thinking about the school situation, a lot of people have said to me over the last several months that what they want to do is they want to call and have somebody respond. They aren't so concerned about patrol as it has traditionally been defined. They just want to be able to call in and have somebody come out and call. So is there some way that you could split that out? Say if you had, you wouldn't have 30 or 40 or 50 officers to do patrol over 24/7. But if you had a cadre, a group of officers that were just responders, in other words, sworn officers, full officers that did responses and reports, could you come up with a number as to what that would be and what that would cost?
Well, there's a lot of factors you're talking about. Is it one, specifically school?
that's what made me think about it, when you need responders, is if somebody calls in and says, there's been an accident out here, such and such, or my house was burglarized, or, somebody's banging on my door and I don't know who it is. If you had somebody just to do a response, not to be going out and patrolling, and going by certain buildings at night and all that kind of thing. If you had people just responders, is that possible, and what would it look like?
Are you talking about sworn police officers?
Yes, they would have to be sworn officers. Yes,
So,
they'd have to be sworn officers.
Are they out, are we talking like a reserve, or are we talking about a full-time employee?
Well, that's how I'm asking you.
Okay.
How could that be set up? If people want sworn, trained officers as responders to come out of, a 911 call, somebody's trying to get in my house, I'm trying to get out the other door, and there's whatever, and you say, well, get someone out there. What would that be? What would it look like?
First off, I only have 3 patrol deputies, that's it.
Right.
The other 3 are on contract, and they're dedicated to the contracts.
Right.
What I'm doing right now is anything beyond the 1 8-hour shift that we provide.
Mm-hmm.
I take the calls from my home.
Mm-hmm.
I've just implemented where I'll have 2 squad cars fully equipped sitting at the jail, so that if I need a backup, I can call somebody to jump in the car and come and back me up.
Mm-hmm.
If it's a matter of calling somebody from home that's off duty, I got an overtime issue. That's why I'm currently taking calls off time when everybody else is off. I handle those calls. Now, if I need a backup, I can call one, hopefully from the jail, so I don't have an overtime issue. Otherwise, I have an overtime issue, and if I start biting into overtime, then I got to lay another body off. I can't afford that. So that's kind of where we're at now. We're in a difficult position to do what you're asking.
I think her question is an information of the district, and I don't know how you accomplish, what are they doing in the off time when there isn't anybody to call and respond to, and frankly that's what a patrol officer's doing. They're out there patrolling, or they're doing the paperwork that's associated with the response that they made on a prior call. So, they're either at the jail filling in there, but you've got to have a minimum level of security there that's pretty consistent, or they're out patrolling, or they're doing paperwork. But I think there's always something, even a responding deputy does, which I think you're trying to get after, is alleviating that somebody once, they tell me that I called and nobody responded. Well, I don't know how we do that.
Well, what I was thinking
Any
is
better than where we...
is if you had someone, that you could have 4 or 5 officers per shift. That way you would have someone there that if someone called in and said, I need help right now, or there's an accident out here, the car's upside down, whatever, they could respond to be there, because they're not out patrolling, going around the vacant buildings and patrolling and going from here to Cave Junction or whatever. You have them based, you could probably base them in Cave Junction, base them here, so that when there's a call, they go out and then they have to do the paperwork associated with that. But they're not out patrolling, doing traffic stops, they're not doing those kinds of things. They're doing response to actual calls, 911 calls.
If I had 4 or 5 on each shift, that wouldn't be a problem. We would be covered. Okay. My problem is I got 3 people and can only use 1 shift. So I need more personnel to do what you're asking to do.
That's what I'm wanting to know, is how much more would you need to do that without going to a full-time patrol type of situation, traffic stops and roadblocks or whatever, all those other things,
These guys, with the limited people I have, these people respond to calls. They don't go out looking for speeders. They don't go out looking for patrolling parks and things like that. They are so busy.
But you get the $12 million.
What's the communication I'm not getting through here?
You're talking about on-call personnel.
I'm talking about them having a certain designated number, whether it's 3 additional, 4 additional, or 5 additional per shift, that do nothing but calls and reports. Do you have enough calls to have 3 more? Do you have enough calls to do 5 more? And the reason I'm interested in this is because people are telling me that they make the call and there's no one to come out. I mean, we had the same thing. We made a call, nobody came out for quite a while. Pretty soon a state police officer came out and frankly dropped the ball. Simple as that. We have a lot of property damage, and they won't give us the name of the person, they won't give us their insurance company, they impounded the car, but somebody claimed the car, and they won't tell us who it is. I mean, it's just a nightmare. We can't even get the information. So, we need somebody that can actually, when that call is going in, that can go out from our department that has a vested interest in our county.
Well, you're right.
They'll actually write a report. We can't even get a report.
I'm still missing.
So what
Are we talking about 24/7 coverage?
I'm talking about 24/7, where you could have 2 or 3 officers that respond and do reports, not that do traffic on the shift.
I don't have those. I have 3 people.
She's asking what it would take.
What would it take to get
Oh,
them?
what you're
What would
asking
it
for is
cost?
how many people?
How many people and what would it cost?
27.
To do that, it would take
Yeah.
27 people. Okay,
That's
and I'm not talking
24/7.
about. I'm not talking about going out and patrolling. I'm not talking about that. I'm just talking about responders.
So what would they be doing until they respond to something?
Well, if you have 2 or 3 officers that are responding to calls and doing reports, that's 2, 3, or 4 more than what you have now. So even if they,
That's a whole lot more.
so if somebody calls in and they say, okay, you had a burglary last night, we'll have someone there within 2 hours because he's finishing up another call. We can have someone there to take the report.
I need a minimum of 27 patrol officers. What this county really needs is 36
Right.
in total. 27 will get us by. That's 24 worker bees and 3 supervisors. But we've only got 3 right now, so we would have to have a whole bunch more people to do what you're asking.
Okay. Now, what about reserve officers? Do you have an active reserve corps?
I do, but I got to be careful with that because you got a lawsuit probably from the union. They're not you cannot supplant a
No, I'm not
full-time-
talking about supplanting. I'm talking about the ones that you're saying that having to do paperwork and reports.
They do the same thing.
Yeah.
The problem is,
Not patrolling.
well, they are patrolling. Okay, they are. Now, I guess maybe what I've got is I've got 2 substations.
Right.
I have volunteers, just people like us, volunteers that staff those. The public can either get on the computer themselves, or they can come to a substation and make a report. There will be somebody at the substation that helps them get that report filed. Now, follow-up is a whole different story. I have to have a certified police officer, and I just don't have enough. Again, if I had 27 people for patrol, dedicated for patrol, we would be able to accommodate what you're suggesting.
So when you come next week to the hearing, if you could have information on what it would cost for that minimal amount, that...
I can, but
because that way
it's not the district.
No, it's not the district. It's not the district.
Yeah, it's outside.
It's outside the district. But I think that's a number we need to know, because people are going to say, why are you not including patrol? There will be that question. Believe me, somebody's going to be there and say, well, why aren't you including patrol? What is it going to cost? We need to know this is the reason it's not included, is because we can't afford to include it at this time, but we may be able to do a levy later.
If I can, what the district is about is you only pay for the services you receive.
Right.
So the folks that don't live within the city of Grants Pass shouldn't have to pay for patrol. They shouldn't have to pay for investigations.
The people that live in Grants Pass.
You said outside, you mean in the city.
Correct.
I'm
The
thinking
people
what you meant.
outside the city are the ones that should pay for those services.
Right.
The people in the city do not benefit
Right.
from that. And that's the unique thing about a district. A levy, you can't do that. A
Right.
district, you can.
That's why part of the next part of this whole process
Right, but that question is going to come up, so that's why I'm wanting to know, can you do it? Maybe, maybe not, but what are the numbers going to be for that? Because when someone says, well, why can't you include that, what is it going to cost? And then we're going to have to go to perhaps a levy type of option, and we need to know that information, because I don't want somebody to ask me, well, the $1.99 that was on for the levy last year, for the last election, that included the patrol, and now we're looking at maybe $1.30 or $1.50, and you're not including patrol. But patrol actually costs more than that 40 cents.
Yeah, it does. Actually, the best answer to that is the $1.99 last year wasn't adequate.
It wasn't adequate. It wasn't going to replace what you had. It was only going to be another minimum level of service.
Right.
Like $12 million, I think.
Well, $1.99 will be roughly about $12 million.
Yeah.
And the system needs at least 12 plus to work right. And the idea behind the district is that we pick those services that are universally used throughout. Right. So those
are used by everybody. In the county. Yes.
And the ideal place, the way to do it is just like the Hughes County did, where you have 2 districts. So you have a rural patrol district that excludes the urbanized parts of the city or the county, and that would be just for patrols. And that would be the 50 cents or 60 cents or whatever it took to get to the 27 plus patrol officers. And those would be charged to those people that utilize the services. I live in the county, I would pay that. But in addition to that, everybody needs a DA, the jail, the animal control, and perhaps school patrol.
We presented that in 2008.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, I remember it.
We are so close to that right now with this district proposal. If we were to go ahead, if we could come up with numbers that would sustain a good level of service, come up with that now, you've still got the general fund that's going to have to pick up the part that's left out. Right now, if the folks out in the county think that they need more than that, then they can come up with a district either next year or the year after.
But that,
you're still going to have to cover this.
Frankly, that's a conversation the board needs to have, and I know you didn't mean anything different. Right. But I'm not going to take general fund dollars to supplant what the county residents wouldn't support with city funds. There's $2.2 billion worth of assets that are taxed at 58 cents a thousand that pay into the same deal. So that gets into some, I know, some other stuff, which we'll have to work out philosophically, but that is an option. But I'd like to do one thing before we wrap this up. Commissioners, if you have questions that you want to integrate into the proposal, the presentations, the agenda on Friday, that'd be great. I would suggest that I meet with you on Friday at 3:30 if you're available. Yep. I'm going to have to move to 4 o'clock. And we'll come up with the agenda, iron out all these things, integrate everybody's kind of like presentations into the agenda and how we're going to work it. So if you have a question, we'll put that together if that's possible.
Did you say you would meet with him Friday?
Friday is the day.
Friday is the
Monday.
hearing.
I was hoping that,
Or Friday.
You said Friday and
at 3 o'clock?
We're going to work everything out on Friday at 4 o'clock after.
Okay.
It was going to be easy. You know what I think they should have done?
I know. You have to be there.
I didn't mean to put anybody on the spot here. I just know that I want to have
3:30 on Monday.
Facts together for the hearing next Friday, so that
Simon,
as those
the players I have lined up so far are Jill, Steve, you, myself, and Rosemary, if she can make it.
So thank you. Appreciate it.
Sure.
Okay.
Sounds good.
Okay. Because I think that we all have a big chunk in this deal, and these are the major stakeholders. Okay.
Yeah, there's a couple of other things I have that are in my queue that I'd like to talk about you, but we'll do that.
Okay. Am I done?
Yeah.
Yeah.
All righty. With nothing further, this board is adjourned for the administrative workshop. It seems like it started yesterday at 3:22. We'll convene for the staff and executive and all those other things here shortly.
That's all you've got.
Just exactly.